Hello, beautiful beings. Welcome to Soul Shift Messages. If you found your way here, trust there's something in this message for you. Understand this space is about growth, truth, and transformation. We don't bypass here. We don't sugarcoat, and not every message will feel comfortable, but it will be honest. I speak in flow, and that sometimes includes cussing. It's just part of how the messages come through. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and trust your own discernment above all else. Take a deep breath, and let's begin. If you are new here, please know at this time I post weekly content in 3 parts. Part 1 focuses on what needs to be revealed, and it sets the topic for the week. Part 2 focuses on what needs to be understood. It's often a deeper dive on what was presented in Part 1. And Part 3 focuses on what needs to be done, essentially what action needs to be taken in order to embody basically what the weekly topic is. So depending on when you find this, I will either have all the links to the available content thus far in the description box below, or if it has not been created yet, I will post when you can expect the next parts. And I do update those description boxes with links as the new content is made available throughout the week. So today's video is going to be part 1, which will focus on what needs to be revealed. And I am calling this message, What Keeps Scarcity and Lack in Your Experience? So let's go ahead and get started. In this context, scarcity and lack does not refer simply to inefficient external resources, but to a subjective internal experience where not enough is felt or perceived regardless of actual conditions. Scarcity is the felt state of insufficiency, instability, or threat of loss. Lack is the interpretation that something essential, such as security, value, love, opportunity, control, or stability, is missing or inaccessible. These are not purely material states. They are psychological and perceptual frameworks that shape how reality is experienced. Scarcity can present itself in everyday life in subtle ways, such as feeling like achievements never fully count or settle, even after success. Experiencing urgency or anxiety when things become stable or calm. Difficulty enjoying what is already present because attention immediately shifts to what is missing or could be lost. Repeatedly reaching almost success, but feeling it slips away before fully landing, and overworking or overthinking even when conditions are already sufficient. This is a self-reinforcing internal system in which scarcity is not caused by external deprivation, but by internal patterns that repeatedly interrupt stability at the moment it becomes real. We'll discuss how identity, control, desire, perception, and timing interact to produce cycles of near success, instability, and reset. The central insight is that lack is generated through consistent interruption of emerging stability rather than absence of opportunity or capability. Let's go ahead and break it down. The core pattern. There is a consistent signal of distortion, exaggeration, and inversion. This is not passive lack. This is compensatory identity structuring. At the root is the belief I am not inherently enough, so I must become something amplified, controlled, or strategic to secure value. So the real scarcity is instability in self-concept, not absence of resources. The origin, value tied to visibility. Value becomes linked to being seen, being impressive, and being useful. This forms an internal equation of visibility equals worth, and worth equals safety. So being seen leads to security, and not being seen leads to perceived lack. This means scarcity is triggered by perception, not reality. I heard say it again. Scarcity is triggered by perception, not reality. How scarcity is expressed. Inflation to a collapse loop. This looks like overperforming, proving, and expansion, followed by contraction, criticism, and paralysis. The cycle is overreach, disappointment, self-reduction, repeat. A split between instinct and control. Strong internal drive and instinct, and simultaneous mistrust and over-regulation of that instinct. All right, let me say that again because that could have been a little confusing. So you have both strong and internal drive and instinct, plus simultaneous mistrust and over-regulation of that instinct. This results in natural momentum that is repeatedly interrupted. It is felt as hesitation, overthinking, and controlled rather than fluid action. Control as safety. The underlying belief is, if I don't control this, I lose everything. So control replaces trust, and management replaces flow. Corruption of desire. You know what you want, but distrust wanting it. So you move toward desire, then disrupt or devalue it. Scarcity here is interrupted desire, not lack of opportunity. Distorted relationship to worth. There is tension between giving and being valued, wanting versus, let me start over. Hang on, let me get some water. I gotta slow it down. Let me start that one over. Distorted relationship to worth. There is tension between giving versus being valued, wanting versus shame, and vision versus execution. The underlying belief is worth must be proven. So value becomes conditional and never stabilizes. Instability in receiving. Patterns show giving feels safe and receiving triggers doubt. Internal responses to receiving include this isn't enough, this won't last, and there's a catch. So value arrives but is minimized or rejected. Disconnection from flow. Energy is active but scattered. This creates instability to retain gains. So scarcity becomes not lack of inflow, but inability to hold and trust continuity. Emotional volatility. There are swings between certainty and expansion and doubt and collapse. So an unstable internal state equals to an unstable sense of security. Hidden fatigue. Underneath all this is exhaustion, depletion, and past overextension. So some behaviors that look like fear are actually fatigue-driven protection. How the system runs. Trigger points. Right before stability, disruption happens just before something becomes consistent, grounded, and secure, meaning the issue is not getting opportunities. It's tolerating having them. When you are seen, visibility triggers pressure, performance, and overextension, which leads to collapse. When desire becomes real, when something shifts from idea to reality, hesitation appears and devaluation begins. So manifestation stage triggers disruption. Blind spot. You may interpret outcomes as bad timing, lack of discipline, or external limitation. But what's actually happening is precise internal intervention. Identity protection. There is a split between the raw, instinctive self and the controlled, managed self. The priority is preserving an identity of competence, control, and safety. So anything that threatens the identity gets regulated or shut down. Precision interruption. Disruption is timed and targeted. It occurs right before completion, right after success, and at the point of stabilization. Emotional rules. The internal system operates on rules like control equals safety, performance equals worth, desire equals risk, stability equals potential loss, and receiving equals vulnerability. These are not objectively true, but they are being treated as true. The paradox of generosity. You likely give easily and support others, but giving also stabilizes your identity and maintains control, so it can prevent you from receiving. Speed versus stability. There is a pattern of fast engagement and intense bursts, but not slow integration and steady maintenance. So pacing contributes to instability. The loop in motion. Vision or desire activates. Clarity appears. Immediate amplification. Energy spikes into urgency and intensity. Control engages. Restraint and management begin. Desire becomes distorted. Self-questioning and doubt enter. Collapse. Energy contracts into criticism or paralysis. Dispersion. Focus scatters. Reset. Stability is regained through giving or reasserting identity. Blocked stabilization. Nothing fully locks in. Then the cycle repeats. Timing truth. Disruption happens at the threshold of permanence. Not at the beginning, not during effort, but when something could become real and lasting. Threshold intolerance. Difficulty crossing from idea to execution, effort to result, and movement to stability creates a pattern of almost but not established. Identity over outcomes. The system prioritizes maintaining a stable self-image over achieving stable results. Micro decisions. This pattern operates through small adjustments, subtle delays, and minor reductions, so no single moment feels like sabotage, but the outcome is consistent. Almost stability signature. You likely experience things getting close to working and momentum building, then a shift and a loss of cohesion. Emotional payoff. The system provides avoidance of pressure, preservation of flexibility, and protection from exposure. So it is protective, not broken. The deepest fear thus far, it's refined to, if something becomes stable and real, I may lose control or become trapped in it. So instability preserves freedom. Again, the thought is instability preserves freedom, but that's a distortion. Additional layers. Absence of enoughness. There is little internal representation of neutral satisfaction and simple sufficiency. So you may not fully register when something is already enough. Orientation toward extremes. The system operates in highs and lows and expansion and contraction. So balance feels unfamiliar or unsafe. Stimulation bias. Intensity creates engagement and aliveness, while stability feels quiet and uneventful. So intensity may be unconsciously preferred. Meaning-making overlay. There is a strong tendency to interpret, assign meaning, and evaluate. This leads to over-processing instead of direct experience. Time compression. There is urgency and impatience, so slow, steady growth is disqualified. Maintenance intolerance. There is low tolerance for upkeep and repetition, but maintenance is what keeps real stability. Completion gap. You initiate and engage, but completion and anchoring are disrupted. Feedback distortion. Because stability rarely occurs, the system learns nothing holds, even though the system is preventing holding. Let me say that again. Because stability rarely occurs, the system learns nothing holds, even though the system itself is preventing holding. Illusion of causality. It may feel like external instability and bad luck, but the cause is internal sequencing. Long-term trajectory. If unchanged, this leads to repeated near success, high effort, and low long-term accumulation. Paradox of capability. You have strong drive, clear vision, and real ability. But higher capability leads to more complex self-interruption. The final refined fear is, if something becomes real and sufficient, I will have to live inside it without the ability to redefine or escape. The final inversion is, the mechanisms meant to protect you from loss are preventing you from having. I heard say it again. The mechanisms meant to protect you from loss are preventing you from having. The deepest truth all layers converge into: you are not lacking. You are interrupting. More precisely, you prevent things from becoming stable in order to preserve control, identity flexibility, and protection from permanence. You already have access to clarity, capacity for stability, and natural openness. So the issue is not ability or opportunity. It is allowing value to exist without controlling it. The real question is, what part of me believes I must distort myself to be secure, and what happens if I stop obeying it? What breaks the cycle? Not more effort or more strategy, but less interference. After activation, don't over-amplify. Before collapse, don't engage self-devaluation. At stabilization, do nothing extra. Let something stabilize without interference. No optimizing, questioning, or bracing. The most actionable realization: you treat stability as something that must be earned through strain. Watch for performing instead of being, controlling instead of trusting, overgiving instead of receiving, overcorrecting small deviations, and especially after something good happens. Do you trust it, or do you reduce or question it? That moment is where scarcity is created. You are worthy of all the good things and the stability the universe has to offer you and more. Repeat that until you believe it. Final synthesis. The system is intelligent, protective, and consistent, and it creates scarcity by preventing enough from becoming stable. The final doorway. Everything reduces to this: can you recognize a moment of enough and not change it? Because right now, you detect enough, interpret it, adjust it, and destabilize it. So the final shift is allow enough to exist without interference. That is the smallest possible action and the one that unravels the entire system. I'm not getting anything else coming through, so I'm gonna take that as this message is complete. If this resonates with you, you can check the description box below to see if parts 2 and part 3 are available. You can also honor your pace and take some time to absorb this information before moving on to the next set of content. I do not delete anything I've created, so know the content will be there and the links will be there if or when you're ready. So, and a friendly reminder, parts 2 and 3 will focus on what needs to be understood and what needs to be done. So that should be it. All right. Take care of yourselves, beautiful beings. Until next time, bye.